Now to this bizarre and disturbing story of a professor from Notre Dame charged with murdering her ex-boyfriend here in D.C. 37-year-old NIJINSKY DIX, an accomplished professor with a Ph.D. in gender studies, is now behind bars accused of shooting 44-year-old Terry Hickman 5 times at close range. Delia Gonsalves is live in Southwest with the latest on this tragic case. I suppose, Delia, when you peel back the layers here, there is a lot going on.
Absolutely, and it is a very difficult story to tell. When you read through the court documents, it just spells out a very difficult and tragic story, obviously with a very horrible ending. Dix tells police she doesn't remember how she got to D.C. In fact, doesn't even know how she got to 4th Street here in Southwest. But according to those court records, she arrived to the apartment right behind me on Saturday. By 5:30, neighbors tell police they heard gunshots and then a woman screaming, "Please wake up, someone help me." Court documents tell a tragic story of a woman allegedly stalking her ex-boyfriend and traveling to his D.C. apartment to kill him. 37-year-old NIJINSKY DIX tells police she blacked out and doesn't remember what happened. And even though many of the victims' neighbors did not want to talk on camera, they helped detectives piece this story together. According to court records, after hearing gunshots, neighbors saw Dix panicked and pacing the 5th floor balcony, a gun in one hand, a cell phone in the other. When police got to the apartment, she was screaming but refused to open the door. When detectives got management to help them inside, the court documents say Terry Hickman was lying face down, shot 5 times in the back of the head and neck. Dix was kneeling over his body, one arm raised, another hiding the gun in her lap. After police cuffed her, court records say they opened her purse to hear someone on speakerphone. It was her mother on the cell phone. According to the court records, she told police her daughter said, quote, "He pushed me and I shot him." Dix was checked out at the hospital. Doctors say she displayed no signs of trauma. The court records indicate during her police interview, Dix was shown a picture of Hickman. She responded by saying in part, "Please make sure he is gone. You don't do people you love like that. I'm sorry."
Like, wait, there's more.
Court documents tell a tragic story of a woman allegedly stalking her ex-boyfriend and traveling to his D.C. apartment to kill him. 37-year-old NIJINSKY DIX tells police she blacked out and doesn't remember what happened.
This story you're about to hear is straight out of a true crime thriller, but it's real life. This story didn't unfold on your typical TV show. It happened in Washington, D.C., involving a woman from Chicago who crossed all boundaries of obsession. We're talking about NIJINSKY DIX, a highly educated woman who was on the path to earning her Ph.D. in criminology, law, and justice at the University of Illinois, Chicago. But instead of using her education to fight crime, she became the criminal. Now, what makes this case even more mind-boggling is the fact that she wasn't just studying any subject. She was studying criminology, the science of crime itself. She knew the ins and outs of criminal behavior, and yet she crossed the line, transforming herself into the very subject she was studying. So let's dive into what happened. NIJINSKY Latasia Dix was a woman who, on the surface, had everything going for her. At 37 years old, she was pursuing a Ph.D. in criminology, law, and justice at the University of Illinois, Chicago, while also holding a full-time position at the University of Notre Dame. In her role, she was responsible for overseeing 2 federally funded programs aimed at helping disadvantaged students gain access to higher education. She was also a member of the esteemed Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, a group known for its accomplished members. Her seemed bright and full of promise. But beneath her accomplished exterior, NIJINSKY was unraveling, driven by an all-consuming obsession with a man she had briefly dated, Terry Hickman. Terry was a 44-year-old divorced father of 3 who had recently relocated to Washington, D.C. from Nashville to be closer to his daughter, who was in graduate school at Howard University. Terry owned a small trucking company with 3 semi-trucks and was focused on expanding his business and providing for his family. He was known for his outgoing personality, and people naturally gravitated toward him. In February 2020, NIJINSKY and Terry met at a party in South Bend, Indiana, where Terry was visiting relatives. She was 36 at the time, and he was 44. The two hit it off, and a romance quickly blossomed, taking root in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. But while Nijinsky quickly became deeply invested in the relationship, Terry was more cautious. Having already been through a divorce, Terry wasn't interested in committing to another exclusive relationship. He was clear from the beginning. He wanted to keep things casual, focus on his business, and maintain his freedom to date other women if he chose. His priorities were his work, his children, and rebuilding his life after his divorce. Their relationship, which began with such promise, lasted only 3 months. By May 2020, Terry had made the decision to end things with Nijinsky. She was becoming too attached, too demanding of his time and attention, and he didn't want to lead her on when he wasn't willing to give her the commitment she sought. He tried to end things amicably, asking her to stop calling and texting him, but Nijinsky didn't take the breakup well. She became increasingly desperate, refusing to accept that the relationship was over. Despite Terry's clear attempts to distance himself, Nijinsky continued to reach out to him incessantly. When Terry blocked her number, she only grew more determined. Her obsession began to escalate. She couldn't let go of the idea that Terry was the one for her, and she became fixated on winning him back, no matter what it took. In the months that followed, Nijinsky's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began stalking Terry, flying from Indiana to Washington, D.C. on weekends without his knowledge. She would rent a car, drive to his apartment, and watch him from a distance, lurking near his home. Terry, who was busy with his work and family, didn't initially realize the extent of her obsession, but he began to notice strange things. Once in September 2020, he saw her sitting in a car near his apartment at the Southwest Duck Pond, but he wasn't entirely sure it was her. Nijinsky didn't just stop at stalking him from afar. She also tried to get close to him through his family, hoping they would help her rekindle the relationship. She aggressively befriended Terry's loved ones, showering them with gifts and attention in a bid to win them over. She even arranged a summer internship at Notre Dame for Terry's daughter, Morocco, trying to ingratiate herself with those closest to him. She sent Morocco a Tiffany & Cohen bracelet as a gift, but Terry, aware of Nijinsky's intentions, insisted that his daughter return the gift and distance herself from Nijinsky. Despite these efforts, Terry was resolute. He wanted nothing more to do with Nijinsky, and he made that clear. But Nijinsky couldn't accept this rejection. Her obsession with Terry grew darker and more intense, consuming her every thought. On November 14, 2020, Nijinsky's obsession reached its tragic and deadly climax. She packed a 9mm handgun, which she had purchased 2 weeks earlier from a pawn shop in Jacksonville, Florida, and flew to Washington, D.C. with the gun in her checked luggage. After landing, she rented a car and drove to Terry's apartment. Terry, who was in the process of packing up his belongings to move, likely had no idea what was coming. Nijinsky confronted Terry in his apartment. The exact details of what transpired in those final moments are known only to her, but the result was brutal and tragic. Nijinsky shot Terry 5 times, once in the back of the head, once in the left cheek, twice in the neck, and once in the left arm. The attack was vicious, deliberate, and unrelenting. Terry, who had been trying to move on with his life, was now lying dead on the floor of his apartment. When the police arrived, they found Nijinsky kneeling beside Terry's body, still holding the gun. She was on the phone with her mother, telling her, "He pushed me, and I shot him." But the scene spoke of something far more premeditated than a simple act of self-defense. Nijinsky, a highly intelligent woman who had meticulously planned her trip and the murder, had carried out a cold-blooded killing driven by her obsession with a man who did not want her.
This woman is 37-year-old Nijinsky DIX, okay? She's an accredited scholar, right? And she presided over programs designed to help underprivileged people get higher education and whatnot, have access to tangibles and shit, okay? Her name is Nijinsky DIX. She's 37. And she was also a student at the University of Illinois at Chicago, but she was a PhD. She is a PhD, all right? And basically, All of that flies in the face of the fact that, the absolute fact that she is a murderer. Okay, she's a murderer. She killed her ex-boyfriend of 3 months. The relationship only lasts 3 months. She, after her boyfriend dissolved the relationship, probably out of concern for her behavior, he was stalked. Okay, for an extended period of time, he was stalked, and his family members were targeted. And she did everything that she could to stay within his circle, even offering his daughter a scholarship, intangible. She sent the daughter a very valuable piece of jewelry. Uh, Post his death, the daughter said that she had advised her father to put some distance between, put some distance between himself and NIJINSKY DIX and whatnot. It was ironic because at the time of his untimely death, at the moment of his untimely death, she caught him while he was moving out of his apartment. He was actually moving to Chicago. Okay? Actually moving into Chicago. He met her at South Bend, Indiana, which is not much different than Chicago. I want to tell you people, I am a native of Chicago, and it does boast some of the most dangerous, and I do mean some of the most dangerous black women on the planet. And, the hit dog hollers if you got a problem with me saying that shit. I grew up there and shit, okay? I've been around, okay? I've met my fair share of, wayward women and shit, okay? If I have to be so candid. But NIJINSKY DIX, an accredited scholar and a murderer. By the way, she was a astute study of criminology, the science of crime and shit. They had a relationship for 3 months. He moved to Washington, D.C. to be close to his children. He was a dutiful father. I'm not saying his name, okay, right now anyway. But this man was he was involved in his children's life. He was a nice guy. He didn't have a record or anything. Even, I found that the news reports didn't try to paint him in any negative light, which was rare shit considering the circumstances and the fact that straight black men are an endangered species in this country. Okay, 3 cases in set. All right, he's a fucking nice guy. I wish he would have kept his head on a swivel, especially when he knew that she was stalking his family members or trying to ingratiate herself into his life through his relatives and family members and shit. They're not any fucking good and shit, okay? Not any fucking good to let her get that close. I don't even know the particulars and shit. I feel really bad and shit. And, I want to say, I putting this commentary out to highlight the problem that I've talked about in the last couple of videos is the fact that for generations, these women have been, indoctrinated, raised with a sense of entitlement, a sense of they have some weird sense of ownership over black men and shit. She couldn't accept the fact that after 3 months that he's dissolved the relationship. There was something about her that set him off, and he didn't want to be with her. And they said that he tried to be amicable about it. When she became more insistent, he blocked her number, and then she started targeting his family members, and she started flying from Chicago to DC and shit, driving there and shit, getting rental cars and sitting outside his house and everything. I don't know if the brother was quite aware to the extent that she was stalking him until the last few moments, the last third of this toxic cat and mouse game and shit. Then by then it was too late. Obviously, he's not with us any longer. All right? And I really want to talk about this, I want you kings out there, okay, to really keep your head on the swivel and shit. Don't believe the hype and don't entertain nonsense, not even for a moment and shit, don't particularly take anyone to your home, okay? Right? You have to vet these women and shit. Even then, I used to say it takes 2 to 5 years to vet somebody, but I'm not so sure anymore. That any woman is capable of doing anything at any given time and shit based on the level of hypergamous criminality that she is not disclosing to you and shit. It takes many different forms, but this is the most virulent of fucking 187, right? This man was 44 years old. He's a father of 3 kids and shit. Okay? It didn't say she had any children or anything, but everything that she did up to and including his murder was premeditated. You know, after she murdered him, for stalkers, for extreme sociopathic narcissists like this, once the object of their affection is no longer shit, it's like someone's letting the air out of a balloon. She was seen on the balcony of his home, of his apartment, with a gun in hand and a phone in the other, talking to her mother. All right, the police came and she refused to open the door, and they had to break in, and they cuffed her and found that she had left her phone on speaker while she was being arrested. That she's an astute study of criminology and whatnot. She's preparing, to an insanity plea and shit. She said she told them that she didn't remember driving from, she didn't remember traveling to DC to murder him. So everything was a blank until he was dead. She unloaded 5 bullets into his head. Okay? And I think maybe 4 bullets above his neck. The first one being in the back of his head, the last one being into his bicep. That probably was a random shot. Right? Then she was found kneeling by the body. I think she just got on her knees when they were busting the door down. Okay, she had to play that role. She had the gun in her lap and one hand raised. Neighbors said they heard her yelling, "Wake up, wake up." That's all bullshit. This woman is a accredited scholar in the field of criminology and also a dangerous sociopathic narcissist, okay? All right, I want you brothers to keep your head on a swivel and shit. That can go many different ways, okay? It can go many different ways, okay? Sometimes you got to stay tooled up and shit. You can't be bringing strange women to your fucking house and shit. Meet them in a public place if you must. I don't think that any man or means should, be meeting a woman. I think he met her at some kind of house party, or he's at some kind of party in South Bend, Indiana, and, probably clapped their cheeks and shit. And, she, in her mind, this was like an older guy. She's 37, he's 44. He's kind of, he's a big guy. He's a big, solid, guy and shit. She was a short, kind of petite, dark-skinned woman and shit. In her mind and whatnot, she had everything laid out how their relationship was going to go. And when he didn't follow the script, it set her off. All right, I don't want to put out a commentary where I make it, vague about how I feel and shit. A lot of people do these commentaries think, oh, well, what set her off? What made her snap and shit? No, she's a monster. Okay? She's an abuser. She's a murderer. She always was a murderer. And it was just a matter of time somebody was going to be caught in the crosshairs. Okay? She thought so little of anyone's life outside her own that she took a man away from his children. Okay? A man away from his children and whatnot. And they say that, black women always say they're the most oppressed class of people and shit. They're the most victimized and shit. While doing the very things that they say that they don't do with shit. And I'm not going to sit on my platform and say some, not all, and shit because a hit dog hollers. If you have something to say, then maybe you should seek therapy. Okay? Because, over here, I'm going to do some kind of positive reinforcement and get without some kind of commentary or, advice maybe, am I limited? I'm not perfect, okay? This hurt, just looking at this, to see this brother lost his life when he was trying to do the right thing. He was even respectful of this woman when he dissolved the relationship. But she would not be denied, and ultimately his association with her was a death sentence, okay? All right. What did she bring to the table? What did 37-year-old accredited and well-connected academic Nijinsky DIX bring to the fucking table? She bought a fucking gun.
Like, wait! There's more!
I talked to a lot of neighbors here earlier this afternoon who were shocked that this happened in a fairly quiet community here. And they said it doesn't matter how fancy the apartment is. Domestic violence can affect anyone. You don't know what's happening behind someone's doors. That's what a neighbor told me. Now, Hickman goes on to where we hear in the police report that Hickman dated DIX for 3 months. They broke up in May, and Hickman's relatives tell police, according to these court records, that after they broke up, he found someone new and was about to move to Chicago. Hickman, I'm told, a very nice guy, a father of a local girl who attends college in D.C. He was 44 years old. We're live in Southwest. Delia Gonsalves, WUSA 9.
It is bizarre and really devastating, Delia. Thank you.
During her interrogation, Nijinsky claimed to have blacked out during the shooting, expressing confusion and distress. She asked detectives to take away a photo of Terry, saying, "You don't do people you love like that. That's not love." But the evidence was clear. This was not the act of a woman who had lost control in a moment of passion. It was the calculated execution of a plan she had been building toward for months. Nijinsky was initially charged with first-degree murder, but she later accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 18 years in prison. In court, she expressed remorse, apologizing to Terry's family for the pain she had caused. But Terry's family was left devastated, feeling that the sentence was far too lenient for the crime she had committed. They couldn't understand how someone who had planned a murder so meticulously could receive anything less than a life sentence. The story of Nijinsky Latasia Dix is a tragic example of how obsession and rejection can drive a person to commit unthinkable acts. Despite her intelligence, education, and the promising future ahead of her, Nijinsky became consumed by a fixation on a man who had tried to move on with his life. In the end, her inability to let go led to the destruction of 2 lives, Terry's and her own, and left a trail of grief and pain for everyone involved. Terry's sister, Ashley Hickman, addressed the court, speaking directly to Nijinsky Dix. She recounted how Dix had aggressively tried to integrate herself into their family, all in an attempt to rekindle a relationship that Terry had made clear he no longer wanted. Ashley described the loss as unbearable, especially considering the brief and casual nature of the relationship that had sparked such deadly consequences. "This loss is so great. And for what? Over a relationship that was only a few months old? I don't think he realized the extent of your obsession," she said, her voice breaking with grief and disbelief. The family's statements in court painted a vivid picture of their deep pain and sorrow. They remembered Terry as a man who had been focused on his family and his business, trying to build a better future for himself and his children. They struggled to comprehend how a brief, casual relationship could lead to such a senseless and violent end. Terry's daughter, Morocco Hickman, who had been the recipient of Nijinsky's unwanted attention and gifts, shared how she had advised her father to distance himself from Dix, never imagining that this advice would be linked to such a tragic outcome. The courtroom was filled with an overwhelming sense of loss and the haunting questions of what might have been if Terry had not crossed paths with Nijinsky. The family's words underscored their belief that Dix's crime was one of pure obsession, premeditation, and cold-blooded intent, an act that, in their eyes, deserved a far harsher punishment. For Terry's loved ones, the sentence handed down that day could never bring back the man they lost. But they hoped their voices would be heard, honoring Terry's memory and the life that was so cruelly taken from them.